I have often been left at a loss for words trying to describe the love and support that I often receive from within this niche. From what I can tell you, this is the most incredibly supportive niche that I've ever had the honor to be a part of and included within. You guys welcomed me into this niche when you never had to, and you guys chose this YouTube channel as your favorite Descendants of Zombies YouTube channel, and you have no unearthly idea how much that means to me. 3,652 of you have recently subscribed here to this YouTube channel, and you have come together and allowed me the honor of sitting behind this microphone every night for what would become the rest of my life, recording videos about Descendants of Zombies. 3,652 of you. That includes members of the Descendants of Zombies universe, the Freya Sky fandom, fans of Clarke and Clarke. They come from everywhere, from all walks of life. No matter what their situations are, no matter who they are, what they have happening around them, they've never cared. They just wanted to be a part of something special, to also have the chance to have their stories shared with fans of Descendants of Zombies just like them. And I've always known, the one thing that's always been constant about this YouTube channel is, there is always somebody out of 500 people who love Descendants of Zombies with all their heart who will forever smash your subscribe button because they appreciate you, they hear you, and they see you. I say this because I've fallen into a lot of niches over the years, niches about superheroes and comic book superheroes and villains and Pokemon and video games. I've fallen into all kinds of niches, but I have never remembered being a part of something that even closely resembles something as powerful as what the niche of Descendants of Zombies consists of. Because the people within this niche understand you, they accept you, they are so, worthy of calling themselves Descendants of Zombies fans. I've heard the members of the cast often refer to this as the Descendants of Zombies world, I do believe, and I've often referred to it as something much greater. Because you don't know what love is until you become a part of this niche. That is the one thing that I know that is forever constant about this niche, is that you don't know what love is until you fall into this niche. And for me it happened unexpectedly because I was walking through the forest of Oregon. I feel like a guy who was an executive producer who fell down through a rabbit hole mysteriously, and he's been walking through the forest of Oregon, and Merlin Academy and Oregon Prep has been attending it for forever with a backpack on his back, and he's just ran into all these wonderful characters and really, broken down their stories, reviewed the character traits, and I've just really had the time of my life because along the way I had the chance to meet so many incredible people, and I also had the chance to talk about stars that I forever felt passionate about. If I ever had the chance to write my own story, when I got to the chapter where I talked about this niche, I would have great difficulty putting into words how appreciative I am of all of you, because you guys have had a very special place in my heart for a very long time. You've often heard me encourage the stars of Descendants of Zombies to write their own memoirs or their own novels. Because when you write your own memoirs or your own novels, your own autobiographies in terms, it allows you to tell your story the way that you want to tell your story. And I've always wanted to write my own book. Now, while I may have never had the chance to write my own book sharing my story with all of you, I think it would give you a better appreciation for where I come from, who I am, and really give you the chance to get to know me. And I've often thought about, whenever I got to this chapter, how I would ever put into words how appreciative I am of all of you. Because in all honesty, guys, you guys really changed my life, and changed my life for the better in so many unimaginable ways. You gave me the chance to be a part of a soundtrack where I reviewed songs and characters and their character traits and their beliefs, and trusting in them. Because the thing is, you have to trust in the dedication of a niche. And the one thing that I quickly appreciated and realized about this niche were, you guys were never going away. And you were always going to be here for me, no matter who I was, what I had going on around me. You understood me, and you heard what I had to say about your favorite stars, because I believed in Clarke and Clarke. If there was one thing somebody took away from every video that I ever uploaded, was that I believed in Clarke and Clarke. And I loved Freya Sky with all of my heart, because I knew there was somebody else out there who felt the same way. And I wanted them to know that their contributions to these franchises that were a part of their lives at some point or another, in some particular fashion, would never ever be forgotten, and they were worthy of being talked about. And I would love to continue to have these conversations with people 20 years from now, even 25. Because if we ever got to a reunion for Descendants of Zombies, I would love to be the host of it, and I would love to be a part of it. Because ever since becoming a part of this soundtrack, knowing that your story could have possibly touched the heart of somebody who may have been going through the same thing, who often related to things you shared and things you talked about, no matter if it was going to the mall and buying the latest Lego Batman video game, which I have here to show you guys. Because I just want to really help put into perspective how if you've ever felt passionate about something, you should continue to follow your passion and continue to pursue your dreams and set goals for yourselves. So if your dream was to have every Descendants of Zombies doll in the collection, then you should feel passionate about collecting them. Because I've never ever wanted you to turn away from your passions or feel discouraged. Because I know there are so many people out there who will discourage you about the quality of the dolls or how special or how much they are actually valued. Do you guys know there have been over 100 dolls created for the Descendants of Zombies doll line? And that are a lot of dolls. You know, this may be just coming from a guy who always had a dream of having his own pro wrestling action figure or being a Disney hero. I always wanted to be a Disney action hero. I had no idea how I would ever become a Disney action hero like Hercules or Aladdin. But I always wanted to be everybody's favorite hero that everybody would watch Disney Channel because of and have my own Disney Channel signature. I often thought it would be so cool. And I know there are people out there who will often criticize, what life was really like for being a Disney girl or a Disney Channel star, but I always had a dream of being one so I could have the chance to work with these girls and get to know them for who they were. Because I always took away a greater appreciation for a 22-minute long show like Sweet Life and Hannah Montana and Sunny with a Chance. I just recently looked at the Disney Holy Trinity, which was often referred to as Hannah Montana, Wizards, and Sunny with a Chance. Those three girls really turned Disney around in a very different generation, and I had the chance to be a part of that. And I often remember the criticism they received, of course, Miley, Selena, and Demi, because nobody really wanted to give them much of a chance. I think it was never really about giving them much of a chance. I think it was all about how people just really didn't want to understand them and what they may have been going through. And now 20 years after the fact that Hannah Montana, Wizards, and Sunny with a Chance were some of the most popular shows of all time, Miley is accepting her Hollywood Walk of Fame star, and Demi Lovato is recording multi-platinum music, and Selena Gomez is the executive producer of Wizards Beyond Waverly Place, which is saying goodbye in a very emotional send-off this summer. So as a result of this and everything happening for them the way they did, we have so much to look ahead to this summer. We have Descendants 5, Camp Rock 3, and not only that, but we have the finale of Wizards Beyond Waverly Place, which is going to be done in a 4-part series. And this is really going to be an emotional time for fans who remember being fans of the original series like I was. I had a chance to grow up in very different generations of Disney apart from your guys' generations, and I've often said this, that I would have loved the opportunity to have been a part of your generation and experience Descendants of Zombies for its true worth and its true value. Because this really was a franchise that had an exemplification of empowerment and encouragement. And, it often inspired me to do a lot of things that I never ever thought I would. Like be a collector of more things than I ever was. Like, of course, video games. And, always wanting to design a Descendants of Zombies video game for you guys. Because I was somewhat of a tech geek. Which meant that I always wanted to design video games and I always wanted to develop new concepts for Descendants of Zombies, be a creative writer. I would have loved to have sent Red and Chloe in to be CGI'd, Kylie Cantrell and Malia Baker to develop an open-world adventure game. I know that you guys have played these mobile games based off Descendants of Zombies, but I've often wanted to create an open-world adventure game like Crimson Desert or Elden Ring or something like that, where it was all open-world concept. And you could go anywhere in Ordon, you could attend Merlin Academy, you could fight bosses that were inspired by the Descendants of Zombies franchises, and you could do missions and things like that. Probably that would take you over 115 hours to complete in their entirety. I would love to see the pre-order day and how many people would actually pre-order Descendants of Zombies on PlayStation 5 or Xbox One or something like that, because the pre-orders would go through the roof. And on launch day, I would love to be working at GameStop somewhere when that game would come out, because I remember when Bluey came out and Hello Kitty Adventures came out on PlayStation 5, and there were thousands of people who pre-ordered the game and who bought it on launch day. People were really excited about it, and just the other day they had Pokemon Card launch day for the first time in forever, and people came out by the thousands from everywhere to just get their hands on the latest Pokemon pack cards. So that was really, really cool. So I've often thought about what it would have been like on launch day if Descendants of Zombies were to have their own full-length adventure video game that was all open world, and I would have loved to have designed that. And I've heard rumors about how Fortnite was going to collaborate with Descendants of Zombies, and I really hope they take themselves up in the opportunity, because if you can welcome The Simpsons into Fortnite, here's the way I look at it. You can also welcome the stars of Descendants of Zombies into this, and I think it would be really cool if people like Kylie Cantrell and Freya Sky had their own playable characters, because this has been a long time coming for them. Just the other night I was so excited about Collie Control releasing the acoustic version of Carrie Bradshaw, because people had been waiting on the acoustic version of this after having waited for forever for Carrie Bradshaw's official single to drop. And of course she drew inspiration from the 1996 book Sex and the City. That book was released years ago in 1996, over 30 years ago. The first Sex and the City novel was released, and Collie Control has drawn so much inspiration from characters such as these played by Sarah Jessica Parker, because they've often reminded them of herself. And I really believe that if a girl can take so much inspiration away from such nostalgic characters, that is something really to be honored, and something to really feel special to be a part of. And I've never felt more honored to see people like Collie Control and often Freya Sky grow into the people that they have. I've always wanted them to know that their contributions would never ever be forgotten, and for sure they've deserved anything but criticism. I've loved being here and being a part of your guys' stories, and I've loved being a part of their stories, because I always believed their story was going to be something special. And I've heard how Freya Sky has been spreading rumors about something special she wants to share with all of us, and one can only assume that it either has something to do with her music and her music career, new tour dates, or something revolving around Descendants of Zombies. And I know that it's still, relatively early to, kind of suggest that it could have something to do with Zombies 5, but who's to say that it doesn't have something to do with Zombies 5? Zombies 5 still feels like forever away. We've still got a year to go, a year remaining until Zombies 5 drops. But this new surprise that Freya Sky has been teasing on social media accounts like Instagram and TikTok could have something to do with Zombies 5. She's recently been posting cameos of herself with some of the cast members and offering us a behind-the-scenes look at Zombies 5, what Disney allows her to showcase. So it could have something to do with Zombies, and it could have something to do with new tour dates. And of course you can keep updated on that by heading over to FreyaSky.com, which is one of the most beautiful website layouts that I've seen in quite some time. You guys will never know what it was like to grow up in the 1980s and 1990s when you had dial-up internet, because when you had dial-up internet, sites like FreyaSky.com will be filled with info, filled with details, ways you could order tickets, you could watch exclusive interviews and videos. Websites back in the 1990s, the early 1990s, up until the latter part of the 1990s, even into the early thousands, were jam-packed with cool video games to play, cool fun facts, all this new stuff that you could find out about by logging onto your dial-up modem. Now, websites are pretty much constructed by record labels like Hollywood Records and Republic Records, and pretty much it's just minimal info that are available on websites. Websites are pretty much used now as marketing strategies and marketing implements to encourage people to buy EPs and download music. It's never really about cool video games or fun facts that you can really put out there on websites. So websites have considerably changed over the last 20 years, and I've often wanted you guys to be able to experience what Disney.com was like, because years ago Disney.com was a website that had GIF implemented into it, which meant that the Disney castle would be on Disney.com, and each time that you would log on to Disney.com, there would always be something new up there. So say Hannah Montana had a brand new episode, you could go to Disney.com and the Disney castle would open up as a GIF plugin, and then you could see stuff about Hannah Montana, and you could play Hannah Montana games. And on the networks that used to show Disney shows like Family Channel here in Canada and Disney Channel for you guys in the US, they would have games that you could play for hours. There were no limitations. There were no restrictions on screen time. So you could play video games based off Hannah Montana, and you could also transfer them to your mobile phone when iPhones first became available in 2007. So years ago, when you had dial-up internet at your disposal from your mom's basement, it wasn't really that bad, because even with how slow your internet was, the games were specifically designed to really, come to life and make you feel a part of something so special. So I've often wanted you guys to be able to go back in time, kind of do the whole Phineas and Ferb thing and kind of relive what it was like, growing up as a Disney fan. But I've often, made that comparison of what it would have been like to grow up as you guys and experience Descendants of Zombies for its true worth. Because when you have a girl like Freya, just 16 years old, releasing songs like Why'd You Have to Call, London, which is an unreleased track from her Stardust EP, you really take away something incredible from these franchises, and you really take something special away from how you feel connected to it more than anything else in the world. Because you go on YouTube now. Years ago, I've often made the comparison of what it would have been like for you guys to grow up in my generation, but I've often, wondered what it would have been like for me to grow up with YouTube at my disposal and been able to watch interviews featuring Freya Sky within that generation, because that would have gave me a greater appreciation for how far she has come. Because the thing about Freya is she's so young, but she's writing such beautiful and relatable music that has often touched our heart. And we've all felt connected to Freya because of how she's writing relatable music that has had this incredible way of touching each and every one of our hearts, for us all taking something special away from the stories of Descendants of Zombies and their stories that we've often heard them elaborate on in interviews. And, you know, a lot of these interviews have touched my heart because I've seen tears in Kylie Control's eyes. I've seen tears in the eyes of Freya Sky because of just how either appreciative they are of these moments or how they share stories with you guys that they are very emotionally connected with, like how Kylie Control a couple of years ago shared a story with you guys about how she never really had the greatest relationship with her mom starting things off in her lifetime, and it was only recently they developed a closer relationship, a close-knit bond. And I've often wondered how close that close-knit bond actually is for how Kylie's mom felt about her years ago. And I remember hearing this very emotional interview with Kylie years ago about how she didn't really have the greatest relationship with her mom, and she felt more connected to her dad. And I always remembered her dad, Alex, being very, very supportive of her, and I had tremendous respect for him. Because, as I said, I was around for a very long time, and I saw Kylie Control go through some of the most emotional times in her life, and I just wanted to be there for her. Like, I wanted to be there for everybody when they were going through emotional times, like the passing of Cameron Boyce, and how Dove Cameron more often than enough couldn't make sense of what was happening around her because she was under a lot of pressure. The thing about that girl was she was under a lot of pressure, and I remember always wanting to alleviate that pressure and letting people like Dove and Kylie know that their contributions and history they had made would never ever be forgotten, because we also, as fans, had a chance to be a part of history, and we will always have a chance to be a part of history for a very long time, as long as we continue to believe in Descendants of Zombies and continue to push forward, because as we push forward, the future becomes more brighter than ever before. I just recently spoke on how you guys should never ever quit on being passionate about something, and if I can find it in chronological order here, I mentioned how I used to collect video games. So just the other day, I thought the elevator was haunted in the mall, but I went to pick up the latest version of the Lego Batman video game series. I have all of them in chronological order. So it begins with the original Lego Batman video game. There you see it there. That was originally released on PlayStation 3, I think back in like 2007. I think PlayStation 3 dropped in 2006, so that came out the following year. And you can see just how different these games actually are. They actually used to come with books years ago, so that was the very first Lego Batman video game with the gigantic manual inside of it. I think manuals have gone digital now. And then you move from that into Lego Batman 2. Of course, that's DC Superheroes Unite, and that was actually one of my favorite Lego Batman video games. They didn't actually drop the manual inclusion in the games years later, and you only got this little pamphlet to go download, downloadable content, DLC stuff, and things like that. Then you move from that, where they take out manuals and everything entirely, to Lego Batman 3. And Lego Batman 3 was Beyond Gotham, where you actually went into outer space. And now you have this brand new one. Oh my god, how much time has changed over the years and how games have changed considerably. That's Lego Batman Legacy of the Dark Knight, which I actually picked up the other day with a included collectible sticker. I always remembered being a part of stories like Batman and Superman because I was always a huge superhero fan, so every superhero comic that I ever read or every superhero movie that I ever saw I thought was real. So I always believed that Batman was going to show up and unexplainably save the day, or Spider-Man was going to jump down from out of nowhere and save me from obstruction. If there ever was a guy who went out on his sidewalk and thought the Incredible Hulk was going to throw a gigantic car at him and probably kill him, it was this guy. I was a true believer more than anybody. So the point being, if you're ever passionate about something like collecting Descendants of Zombies dolls or collecting the jackets, which I know are very, very beautiful, all I've ever wanted for you guys to do is continue to follow your passion, because as big of a loser as I might be for loving Batman or loving Superman, you guys can be just as big of losers for loving Descendants of Zombies too, and we can be losers together, guys, because we only have one life to live, and the thing is, whatever you're passionate about, you should remain passionate about for many years to come. The cool thing about life is, when you get older and you think back on your time being a fan of Descendants of Zombies and how cool you thought it was and how unbelievably breathtaking it was to attend events like the Worlds Collide Tour, and you look back on your phone, we'll probably have iPhone 54 by the time you guys are my age. But by the time you have the iPhone 54, which actually sounds really cool, can you imagine? iPhone 54 available now. That would be really, really cool to have iPhone 54. So when you look back at your iPhone 54 and you look back at all the photos that you took of yourself and your friends taking selfies at the Worlds Collide Tour, and you think back on how special these moments are, that's really what we appreciate about life, and that's what life always has really been all about, is how we appreciate these moments and we never ever forget them, and how we created these moments 20, 25, even 30 years ago. That's what's so cool about it. And if Descendants and Zombies is still around by the time you guys have kids and you're married and you find your true love and you fall in love with them, you can share stories about how you were a fan one time and now they're a fan of different characters that you never thought that you'd see in Descendants and Zombies. And you can really have family moments that bring your family that much closer together. That's what makes my job as a YouTuber worth it every single time that I've ever pushed record about Descendants and Zombies, so I can share in these moments with all of you and really believe in these moments more than I ever have. So from my heart to yours, thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of both your worlds and your stories, because I really have had the time of my life sharing with you what it was like for me being a fan of Descendants and Zombies. I may have never grew up with Descendants and Zombies, but you guys have always one-upped me because you had the chance to grow up as a fan of Descendants and Zombies, and that honestly is the coolest feeling in the world. And I had the chance to be a part of both your worlds and your stories because of how passionate you felt about Descendants and Zombies, and allowing me to be a part of it along with all of you on an incredible journey that's been truly breathtaking, often leaving me for a loss for words. But I've really had the time of my life. Thank you so much for being here with me forever and always. And thank you for always holding a special place in your heart for the franchises that you've obviously appreciated for quite some time, Descendants and Zombies. Don't ever let anybody tell you any different. Don't ever let anybody take that away from you, because what it comes down to and boils down to is how much you love Descendants and Zombies with all of your heart. And thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of it and be a part of your story, because I've loved sharing my story with you and I've never had any regrets. From wherever you hear my voice this evening, or from wherever you may be watching this video, just know that you will always hold a special place in my heart. Thank you for being the forever loyal fans of Descendants and Zombies you have always been. And as always, from my heart to yours, thank you so much for forever and always having watched these videos.